Yes, it seems to me that extending bombing to Syria seems a fairly obvious thing to do. No one else is making a distinction between Iraq and Syria, least of all ISIS, who've actually demolished the border, making it into one country. So it's not faintly ludicrous to stop bombing at a border they don't even respect.
Your post-Blair life has been dominated by your book, which is talking to terrorists. Can you talk to ISIS? Could you? I mean, what are you doing in Libya? Are you managing to get hold of any of these people who are representing ISIS?
Not in Libya, but you certainly could speak to ISIS. And indeed, if anyone thinks that just by bombing you're going to finish off ISIS, they're sadly mistaken.
What sort of conversation could you have with them?
Well, you need to try and deal with the issue that's behind the support that ISIS enjoys, which is the alienation of the Sunni population in Iraq and in Syria. They feel that the sectarian regimes in Damascus and Baghdad have exploited them for long enough, and they want to feel that they can get some say in it. That's why many of the deputies to Baghdadi are not people motivated by a caliphate, but people who were in Saddam's special forces. That's why they're there.
Isn't there a difficulty that the caliphate does, to all intents and purposes, already exist?
Well, the caliphate exists as a country, but it isn't regarded as a caliphate. Really, in the end, the issue is, why do they enjoy political support? And if they enjoy political support, how are we going to address it? If we simply have a military strategy, that won't work. We'll have to have a political strategy and a military strategy if we're going to defeat a group like this.
So, I mean, as I said, there's 5% of the effort of bombing Iraq is British. I mean, they might as well carry on there. What's the need to go into Syria?
I think that's right. There aren't that many targets left in Syria. There are plenty of air forces bombing there. But I think symbolically it's very odd for us to stop at a border that no one else respects. So I think bombing there makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is to have a strategy that's confined only to bombing. You need to have boots on the ground, and whose boots are they going to be? And you need to have a political strategy which may in due course lead to talking to them.
Well, intriguingly, you do have boots on the ground in the form of the Turks in the north and the Jordanians in the south. But there doesn't appear to be any kind of a sort of integrated relationship between anybody and anybody.
Neither the Turks nor the Jordanians have gone into Syria, and I'm very doubtful that they will. The boots on the ground that people are talking about at the moment are the Kurds, who are fighting in the Kurdish part of Iraq and in the Kurdish part of Syria, and they've been quite successful. But they will only fight up to the end of the Kurdish areas. They're not going to go into the Sunni areas. Likewise, the Shia militias from the south in Iraq haven't made much progress into the Sunni areas of the north of Iraq. Someone's going to have to fight there if you're going to drive ISIS back. It will not be done from the air. And the same is true in Syria. Who is going to do the fighting there?
What do you think, then, of the dynamic? I mean, are we now facing the possibility that in the face of a very united ISIS front, we could look disparate if, in fact, now the Commons doesn't support the Prime Minister in going into Syria?
Yes, I mean, I suspect the Commons will support the Prime Minister in going into Syria to do this, because, as I say, the border doesn't make any sense from that point of view. But the Prime Minister talked about a full-spectrum response after the ghastly murders in Tunisia. And I guess a full-spectrum response is going to need to include not just bombing, but, as I say, a political strategy to deal with ISIS.